the main event of our gala, the launch of our very first graphic novel, Our Stories Carried Us Here. You've heard the story of how the book came to be and the plans for the publishing of a hard copy version of the book later this fall. But today we launch our ebook, and we have such a treat for you all right now. Joining us now are some of the authors and illustrators who were the superheroes of this book. I'm going to introduce them to you now. We'll start off with Dr. Craig Moody, who immigrated from Kingston, Jamaica to the US in 2002 to first study neuroscience and psychology at Macalester College, and then continued to work in these fields with more than 15 academics such as Harvard Medical School, the University of Minnesota Medical School, and Stanford University. Craig is joining us tonight from San Francisco, where he is now a clinical research scientist in the health, technology, and pharmaceutical industries. Born in Guatemala, Catalin arrived in the US at age 7. Growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, Catalin thrived in her studies and is now a DACA student at Emory University. And GCV author Vi Loan was born in a small village in Vietnam and arrived in the US with his mom to reunite with his grandfather, who was a US soldier. Lee is now a university student at UW-Madison, and he was our gala keynote speaker last year. Zodia Anjum was born in Pakistan and, following in her older sister's footsteps, pursued a career in medicine. She came to the US with her husband, where she continued her studies to become a psychiatrist. She's a mother of 2 children and joins us tonight from St. Cloud, Minnesota. And now our illustrators. We have award-winning graphic novelist and illustrator Nate Hall. Nate drew the beautiful cover illustration. Nate illustrated John Lewis's graphic memoir, March. He's joining us tonight from Bloomington, Indiana. Then we have Ana Hinojosa, is from the Dominican Republic and an MCAD student who's been hailed as one of the most promising illustrators of her generation. Ashraf Al-Attar is from Egypt and now resides in Arlington, Virginia. Ashraf received his MFA in illustration from Savannah College of Art and Design with a full scholarship. His children's books and graphic novel have been published in the US and around the world. Thank you all so much for being with us here tonight. Now we're going to stop sharing the screen right now, and I suggest that if you haven't already done so, to put your Zoom screen into the speaker view. So I have a few questions to pose to our panelists, and then we'll open things up for some Q&A with our audience. So feel free to chat up your questions as we go along. So the first question is for everybody. So for sake of time, you guys can give some brief answers. But so whoever wants to start off, you can tell us who was the storyteller or illustrator that you worked with, and then share how was your experience co-creating the story together. Maybe I'll pose it to the storytellers. Dr. Craig Moody, do you want to start off and tell us who was your illustrator and how that process was, co-creating that story?
Sure. So hi, I'm Craig. First, I'd say thank you for having me. Hello to Taya, Tom, Julie, all you guys at Green Card Voices, and thanks for the amazing work you're doing. Also to some of my longtime friends, Dara and Andrew, good to see you guys. And so, yeah, for me, this was a great experience. I was very humbled to be asked by Green Card Voices to be a part of this series. And, it was a great experience. I didn't actually know how it was going to work at all. And so, I was thankfully paired with Ana Hinojosa. So she and I were kind of very intentionally paired based on being, Caribbean immigrants and having family on the East Coast in New York and Miami. So, maybe some shared cultural overlap would have helped us. And it definitely did from my perspective. And, really, I'd say most of this work was the heavy lifting was all done by Ana. I didn't know how to even conceive of these things. And then she'd come back and be like, here's what I took from what you said, and translated it into actual panels. And it was just amazing seeing that. And she kind of hit the note right almost every time in terms of what I was trying to convey, like from my speech into this kind of graphic representation. And that was amazing. And it was very humbling as well to kind of see the whole story done and how beautiful her illustrations were. So thank you so much, Ana. And thanks for the amazing experience, everybody.
Thank you for sharing that experience, Craig. I know that Ashraf, you specifically worked with Zainab. And so I remember when we were filming the Kickstarter, she had mentioned how she was so grateful to be able to work with you because you guys both spoke Arabic. And that really made it easier because English not being her first language, so being able to understand. Would you like to explain kind of how your experience was co-creating with Zainab and how that worked for you?
So it was a great pleasure to work with Zainab. I mean, to know her story. For me, I'm coming from the Arab world, and to see her story, it was a great motivation for me as an artist to see somebody who started with a tough start as Zainab and to do all the steps. And to be honest, every time I'm following with Zainab's story, there's obstacles that it's really hard for me to believe that I can survive one after another. So I was really interested to draw the story, and I could understand her more because as we know that we speak the same language. I know what she's talking about. She came to Egypt, and I know exactly the environment and how she was dealing with things. So it was a pleasure for me to draw Zainab and her story in my motherland, and to be able to understand what type of people she was dealing with, the environment, everything was actually very. I was interested to draw this, and at the same time, as I said, her story and her progress and her fight was so many things. I mean, with war, revolution, escaping from Yemen, coming to Egypt, and has his TB problem, and how she can overcome everything. And it was kind of motivation for me as a person, not only as an artist, to see a fighter like her. It helped me also when I was drawing, because I believe that it's not only about drawing. I mean, it's about understanding, and somehow this connected with your ability to draw and your passion to show this to the world. What she did. I'm proud of her. I'm proud to be part of the project. I hope I did my best to show her story. I still, after I worked, I felt like I could do this better than this. But in the end of the day, I'm really proud that my name will be next to her, that I did this project for her, and I wish her the best. And I'm really grateful to be part of Green Card Voices.
Yeah, that's great. It was such a great pairing, and I think it's so important that both of you guys could speak the same language to be able to relate. I want to pose this next story to Nate. I mean, how was illustrating the book cover? What was kind of your artistic process?
Well, it involved juggling a lot of things. In my primary consideration was that it's sort of this dynamic between highlighting individual experiences and representing the process of immigration and settling as not being monolithic. And so that involved on every level, like, well, here's the original art that we can kind of go through, not only like presenting profiles of the people whose stories are highlighted, but also recognizing the physical gulf between the first home and the second home, different modes of transportation, different contexts and reasons for leaving and for arriving. In a lot of ways, this allows, this allows a means to kind of let all of these different stories with hope, with fear, with stress, with the past and future to sort of coexist. And thankfully, this is a gatefold, it's like a wraparound cover. So I was able to kind of physically make the book be a part of departure and arrival. I think we all agreed as we were speaking earlier about how the cover would represent these stories, that it was important to kind of stick up for the notion that, like the particularly dominant American notion that that the immigration experience, to push back against the idea that the dominant immigration experience is one of arriving in the United States, and it was important to represent that the home that the home countries of people who have immigrated to the United States are worthy of highlighting and worthy of representing in the same physical plane. So that was a big part of it. I also really liked what Ashraf just said about the process of collaborating on his story, on his experience, on drawing itself as being a process of understanding. And so for a lot of that, yeah, it involved a little bit of like cursory research and reading through some profiles and some stories, which would go into the artwork. But one thing that's really nice about doing illustration is the sheer amount of time it takes. And there's a lot of value in focusing on a person's likeness while you are learning about their experience, while you're learning, about the context which brings you to the drawing table representing them. And so that time spent on each person profiled was very much a part of the process of understanding each individual story, so that, and there's a lot going on in the cover, but hopefully being able to plant little seeds throughout the cover that were more than just physical likeness.
Yeah, no, the cover is just fantastic. When I saw it, I was like, wow, especially the ability for you to be able to incorporate like the Statue of Liberty, because it's so common and well known, and just tying it all together was very well done. Thank you so much, Nate. I want to pose this question for the storytellers. I know that Zulia had to drop off, and she is a mom, so it's understandable. So Zainab, you can join in on any of these questions too. So I'd love to hear from you, Zainab, V, as well as Caroline. Tell us, what do you hope non-immigrant communities will learn about immigration from your story or work?
Yeah, thank you again for this opportunity and this event. I feel like reading the stories is so different than seeing them in image, and like this illustration does like bring things in life that people really don't understand. What does it mean for someone to struggle from thing, or someone to go through stuffs? And I feel like even me reading right now my own story, like I still feel like my grandma here. I feel like I could imagine my neighborhood again and all those things. And I feel for non-immigrants, they are missing the imagination of what it looks like to live outside of US. Majority of people never even left outside of their country and barely went to other states. So these books helps you to have different perspective of the world and different lifestyle, different communities, different faith, and different struggles as well. Those struggles could be beautiful things that made us who we are. Don't be afraid to learn them, and that's one thing, one way you get closer to your neighbor. You need to learn their story, how they came here, and their story is so different than your story, or the story you always think of in the news and the movies.
Yeah, so true, Zainab. Thank you so much for sharing. V, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And part of my story was letting the readers kind of interpret themselves a little bit. I think my portion is very minimal, very abstract, and with a lot of hidden details that Corey did an amazing job delivering what I was asking of her. So a lot of the little details will leave for the readers to interpret and kind of put themselves in my shoes a little bit to kind of feel the story my way, how I wanted them to. And that will make them understand, or try to make them understand my own feelings at the time, going through the process.
Wow, thank you so much, V. Caroline, did any of the illustrators surprise you in how they portrayed your story?
Yes, I think I was surprised and impressed by some of the things that Mike Centeno, who was the illustrator for my story, was able to do. I think one of the previous storytellers mentioned how it's very difficult to envision a story going from a written version to something visual. So I was very impressed with how he was able to translate my story and how he was able to give me ideas of maybe how to adjust like the color of the book. I know we decided for my story to focus on using just pink and blue tones, and that was very creative to me. And we also decided to use visual aspects like collages to show dreams or visions. And I was very surprised by that. I was surprised by the fact that these illustrators are able to take these written or spoken stories and just make something so much more out of them. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to have had the opportunity to participate in this project and to see this book come to life.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kathleen. Cannot wait to read your story and everybody else's story once the book is finally published. Anna, I mean, what was your artistic process like when drafting and developing each page? Kind of deciding everything. If you want to tell us that, we'd love to hear.
Hi. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. So pretty much, I really wanted to make it seem as personal as I can. And so a lot of the audio that I was given, I was kind of just taking little segments from it. So most of the dialogue in the comic is straight from the audio. So it sounds like Craig, like the words that are used, like, you know, it's all Craig. And so I really wanted it to be kind of like you were looking through his eyes. And the colors, I started with more kind of like a super colorful sort of palette to kind of like symbolize, like, you know, when you think about your childhood in like a very nostalgic way, there's like certain things that you kind of like you see it in a rosy way. And so I wanted to focus on using those colors and kind of bringing it and sprinkling it throughout his comic so that it kind of showed that, like, even though Craig was moving through his life and progressing his career, he was still holding on to things, you know, that who he is and who where he's from and things like his family, but also, you know, using it in his own special way. Like I had also used the colors from the beginning towards the end too, to, you know, to kind of tie it all together in that way. And yeah.
That's really exciting. It seemed like it was very complex, but you guys are obviously talented in this field, so you were able to pretty much make it come all together. Right? So you guys did such an amazing job. Richard, do we have some audience questions? Let's open it up to some of the audience. Any questions from the audience for the illustrators or the storytellers?
I'd love to see some questions come in. Me personally, I have lots of questions. Okay, here we go. Here's one. How did you choose the color palette that you used?
I think that would be more.
Am I answering it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So Craig provided a variety of childhood photos, and so I was getting colors from there. And then I was also doing a lot of research of, I was looking at home videos that I found on YouTube of Jamaica, of Kingston, Jamaica in the 90s. And I was kind of just like taking screen grabs and really like getting the feel of the area. And yeah, that was pretty much how I did the color palettes. And I think for the more neuroscience point of view, it was mostly blues. For sure. There's a lot of blues. So I was kind of gearing towards that, I guess.
I have a question also personally, as more questions come in. We have a lot of compliments coming in of how wonderful the work is and how excited they are to see the entire work. So one of my questions is, we had a great comment by Ashraf about how nice it was to be able to work with someone who really understood the setting and that sort of thing. From the storyteller's point of view, what was it like really having someone who knew what things looked like, who could help make those pictures in your head come alive?
I could go since Ashraf. Okay. I don't know who's talking.
I was just going to mention, if we want to give some brief questions, we have just looking at time, we're almost going to be running out. So I'll let you guys go ahead and answer that last question, and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Zainab.
Thank you. I'll just do it very quick. It was easy for me, as Ashraf was saying, like he knows what the life in Egypt looked like. It was easier for me to describe Yemeni culture to him too. And like we talked about the buildings and things. So having someone knows my culture was helpful for me to kind of like work together to reimagine how it looked like.
Great. Thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you to all of you graphic novel authors and illustrators. We're so grateful for you for sharing your story and for the illustrators for creating their stories to come to life. Can we all just give them a round of applause? Just virtual round of applause.